let's talk about the production possibilities frontier. And I'm going to be following along in the textbook starting on page 26. So let's say that we have an economy with a set of resources, and this economy can produce only two goods. It can produce computers and it can produce cars, given the resources that it has. It has labor, it has capital, it has land, it has all of these things. And let's say that given those resources, we'll choose 4 different production combinations. So they can produce computers and they can produce cars. And so combination A is going to be where they can produce 3,000 computers and no cars. All of their resources have been used up producing computers, so they have nothing left over to produce cars. But let's say they want to produce the first 700 cars. Well, they're going to have to give up the production of some computers. So they can produce 2,000 computers if they want to produce 700 cars. Now let's say they want to increase the production of cars a little bit more. And but once again, there's a cost to doing that. They're going to have to give up some of the resources that are devoted to producing computers. And now they're producing 1,000 computers. And then finally, if they want to produce 1,000 cars, they've got to give up producing computers entirely. So keep in mind that each one of these points represents a combination of goods produced by this economy using all of its resources. And now we're going to graph that. Let's move that up out of the way here and get our graph out. So we've got, let's straighten that out for you. So graphing these points, we have computers on the y-axis, we have cars on the x-axis. And point A is going to be, let's see, 1, 2, 3. And then cars goes up to 1,000. So point A is going to be right here. Label that point A. That's 3,000 computers and 0 cars. Point B, 2,000 computers and 700 cars, right here. Point C, 1,000 computers and 950 cars, right here. And point D is 0 computers and 1,000 cars, right here. Connect these dots, and that gives us a production possibilities curve, roughly, that looks like that. So this curve represents all of the different combinations. You notice there are probably some combinations in between A and B, or between B and C, and so forth, that are possible. Now let's think about, what about a point out here? So here's this economy would like to produce 2,000 computers and over 1,000 cars. Well, unless something changes, it is impossible for them to do it. So this is what we call the infeasible. Infeasible, same thing as impossible. Okay, I think that's spelled right. So this is the infeasible point here. Not possible given the resources that this economy has. What about a point inside here? Let's say 1,000 computers and 700 cars. Well, that is possible given the resources that they have. They have the resources, but because of the fact that they're producing less than what is on the production possibilities frontier, that means that they must not be using their resources. Maybe it's an inefficient point. Maybe they're using their resources inefficiently. Or it could be that they have some unemployment going on. Either they're not employing labor completely, or maybe they're not employing capital. It could be that there's a depression or a recession going on. The point inside the curve represents a situation where there are resources, but they're just not being used. Now, what about a situation where the curve has shifted out? So this means that one of our assumptions about resources has changed, or technology. They have an increased set of resources, or they have new technology that has allowed that whole curve to shift out. In other words, they can produce more of everything. This happened back when electricity was invented, for example, when the locomotive was invented, when computers were invented. These big things that allowed us to be much more productive, more efficient. We could produce more of everything. Or it could be that this set of resources has expanded. So they've produced more capital goods in the past, and so now we have more equipment, machinery, buildings, inventions, patents, ideas, and this has expanded the economy. So this is an expanded economy. And we have more resources. Now the opposite would be represented by a curve that has shifted in. This would be a situation where this economy actually has fewer resources. Something has happened. There's been an earthquake. There's been something that has devastated the area and has destroyed some resources. So they have fewer resources. So their production possibilities curve is smaller. They are able to produce less of everything. So they're fully utilizing everything they have. They just have less of it. So we have basically 5 different scenarios here. The first one was with our original production possibilities curve, representing an economy that's using all of its resources. We have a point outside that curve that represents an impossible or infeasible point given the resources the economy has. We have an inefficient point relative to the production possibilities curve. We have the resources, we're just not using them. And then we have the situation where the curve shifted out, which means more resources or new technology. And we have finally the situation where the curve shifted in, meaning fewer resources.